Black twins threatened by cops in bar, not knowing one is captain and the other commander SEALs. The Red Line Tavern was the perfect location for blending in. It was dark, loud, and nobody paid attention to anybody else. That was precisely why Elias and Marcus Thorne had chosen the darkest booth in the back. Dressed in nondescript hoodies and jeans, they looked like two college students avoiding homework, but the intensity in their eyes suggested they were discussing something far more volatile than textbooks. They were identical twins, yet Elias, the commander, carried an air of coiled stillness, while Marcus, the captain, was subtly buzzing with operational readiness. They weren't discussing sports. They were waiting for a nervous asset codenamed Sparrow, carrying critical intelligence on a threat to a major naval base. They couldn't use official channels. This was a black op requiring maximum deniability. Sparrow is 10 minutes late, Elias, Marcus whispered, checking the time on his military-grade watch, which was currently turned inwards. If this intel doesn't reach J5 command tonight, we lose the window. Patience, Marcus, Elias murmured, his eyes sweeping the bar. High-value assets run late. They're terrified. Just then, the front door of the tavern burst open. Two uniformed police officers, Sergeant Miller and Officer Hayes, stomped in, their faces tight with aggression. Miller was a mountain of muscle with a perpetual sneer, and Hayes looked eager to please him. Miller's eyes immediately locked onto the two black men in the dark booth. They matched the vague, panic-driven description of men involved in a minor convenience store dispute blocks away. Miller strode directly to their table, his hand resting conspicuously on his sidearm. Hands on the table, boys. Right now. Marcus, the captain, immediately bristled. Excuse me, officer. We are simply waiting for a contact. We haven't done anything. I said hands on the table. Miller barked, slamming his palm down next to Elias's glass, making the whiskey jump. We have a report of two individuals fitting your description in the area. Now let me see some ID. And be slow about it. Marcus sighed, visibly restraining his military training to respond with compliance. He reached for his wallet. Elias, the commander, however, remained still, his eyes fixed on Miller. Sergeant, we are complying, but your immediate tone and posture are disproportionate to the situation. We'd appreciate it if you could lower your voice. Miller saw this as a challenge. He leaned over the table, his face inches from Elias's. You lecture me on posture, kid? I'm trying to figure out if you're criminals, and you're giving me attitude. Now, I want to see your IDs, and I want to know why two thugs like you are sitting here in a confidential briefing area. Confidential briefing area? Marcus scoffed. It's a dive bar, Sergeant. Silence. Miller roared, causing several patrons to turn and stare. You know what? I've had enough. This is obstruction of justice. Stand up, both of you. You're coming downtown. Hayes, cuff the loud one. Officer Hayes eagerly pulled out her handcuffs and moved toward Marcus. This was the line. They couldn't be arrested, not when Sparrow was minutes away and their mission integrity was paramount. Marcus, the Air Force captain, shot a quick, desperate glance at his twin. Elias, the Navy SEAL commander, gave a single, almost imperceptible nod, the signal to break protocol. Before Hayes could touch him, Marcus produced his wallet, but instead of a driver's license, he produced a heavy, government-issue metal badge, slamming it onto the table with a sound that demanded attention. Captain Marcus Thorne, Air Force Special Operations. This is an active, classified domestic security operation under Joint Task Force oversight. Your actions have jeopardized national security. I demand to speak to your chief immediately. Sergeant Miller stopped dead. The badge wasn't a fake. Carried the weight of the Pentagon. Miller's arrogance faltered, replaced by panic. A Air Force captain? What in the hell? Marcus cut him off with the cold precision of a field commander. You just threatened to cuff a commissioned officer, Sergeant. Now back away. You are compromising a mission. But Miller, desperate to save face, decided to double down. This is still my jurisdiction. Your Air Force business doesn't supersede my authority. You're military. You have no jurisdiction here. I'm still taking you in for disorderly conduct." He reached out to grab Marcus's arm. Suddenly, a voice like ice cut through the tension. Elias Thorne, who had remained perfectly silent during Marcus's reveal, finally spoke. "You're making a mistake, Sergeant. A mistake that will cost you everything." Elias slowly reached into the inside pocket of his hoodie. He pulled out a dark, official leather document folder and opened it. He placed an ID card on top of Marcus's badge, followed by a platinum-edged command insignia pin. The card didn't just say Navy. It said Commander Elias Thorne, United States Navy Special Warfare Command. And the insignia pin was not for show. It signified that the man was not only a Navy SEAL, but held a rank of high strategic command authority. Miller stared at the card. Captain was bad. A SEAL commander was a catastrophe. "You," Elias stated, his voice a lethal whisper, "threatened to obstruct a mission that is currently linked to the Secretary of Defense. You threatened to arrest my brother, a captain, and you just physically assaulted a commander of the U.S. Navy. The consequences are no longer under my brother's jurisdiction." Elias pulled out his personal secure satellite phone. He did not dial the local police chief. He dialed the mayor's office. "This is Commander Thorne," Elias said into the phone, his voice echoing with absolute command. "I am currently at the Red Line Tavern. I need immediate classified coordination with the Joint Task Force liaison. And I need the name and badge number of Sergeant Miller and Officer Hayes. I need their immediate removal from duty, and a full internal affairs investigation started tonight." He looked directly at Miller, whose face was now gray with absolute terror. "Tell the mayor that his officers just compromised the safety of the entire city. And tell him that Sergeant Miller, who has just committed 2 counts of obstruction and assault on a federal officer, is officially fired as of this second." Marcus, the captain, stepped forward, his military posture now fully reasserted. He looked at Officer Hayes, who was frozen in fear, holding the useless handcuffs. "Hayes, you are not involved in this. Secure the area," Marcus commanded. He then turned to Miller. "Sergeant, you are relieved of all duty. Hand over your sidearm and badge. Now." Miller, utterly broken, fumbled to obey, the weapon clattering onto the bar. Suddenly, the side door of the tavern opened. A nervous man in a cheap suit, Sparrow, walked in. He saw the scene, the police officers, the twins in charge, and the palpable tension. Elias cut the call with the mayor. He looked at his brother. "Mission first, Marcus. Debrief the asset." Marcus nodded, his vengeance already complete, as he sat down with Sparrow, instantly shifting back to the quiet intensity of intelligence work. Elias, the commander, stood over the disgraced Sergeant Miller. "You looked at us and saw thugs. I hope you learned today that rank isn't always visible in a uniform. Sometimes the most dangerous, highly trained authority is the one you least expect." He picked up the handcuffs Officer Hayes had dropped and tossed them onto the bar, a final, cold insult. He then walked back to the booth to cover his brother's mission, leaving Sergeant Miller's life to unravel in the smoke-filled silence of the bar.